We are going to remove the shaft and the metal sleeve from a C4. There are a couple of ways to do it. You could put it in a soft vise, heat up the boot and the top, being careful with the heat gun, and work it out. It should allow you to get the sleeve out since it's only being held on the sole of the club and also right here. Another way to remove the shaft and metal sleeve is to cut off the shaft. Using an easy out, put it in and drill it out and pull out the metal shaft. Heat in these two places and remove it with an easy out. You have to remove the metal sleeve to replace it with the Billy Bob metal sleeve and adapter. Today, we're going to use the soft vise and heat gun method. First, put the head in the soft vise. Tighten enough to secure it, but not too tight. Take the heat gun and heat the aluminum. Be very careful because the top is all composite. You need just enough heat on the bottom and here to release it. Carefully, move it back and forth and slowly slide it out with the metal sleeve attached to the shaft. While it's warm, use an awl or screwdriver and scrape away any of the epoxy that was in the boot. You can feel the recess in there. Clean it out with an air gun and tap out any excess. It's important to make sure you have any leftover epoxy cleaned out. Once it's cleaned out good, take the kit with the sleeve, put in the head, and make sure it's in the boot. It won't go in there if it's not cleaned out good. It will set up high if it's not cleaned out. You shouldn't see any of the metal if it's cleaned out properly. After removing the head from the shaft, you need to clean out all the old epoxy off the shaft. Using a 1x42 microbelt for a microbelt sander, you can sand off all the epoxy from the shaft without damaging the fibers in a graphite shaft. First, turn on the sander and using easy pressure, turn the shaft against the belt with one hand while holding it with the other. All of the epoxy is removed and the shaft is now prepped. Be sure not to touch the prepped part with your hand, as the oils from your hand can degrade the epoxy when you build the club. To prep a new shaft, you need to have at least 1 inch to 1.5 inches of paint removal. Using a 1x42 microbelt from a microbelt sander, you can remove the paint. First, turn on the sander, and using easy pressure, turn the shaft against the belt with one hand while holding it with the other. If you push too hard or use too much pressure, you can damage the shaft or remove too much paint. This is a Callaway Big Bertha C4 head. It has an aluminum sole that is epoxied on a full composite head. It's all graphite, the face and the top. The metal part is glued onto the composite. Callaway has come back to the composite heads, such as the FT5. This FT5 has been redone using the Billy Bob adapter. It has a metal face and a composite back. The C4 was Callaway's first version of the composite driver. The C4, even by today's standards, hits really good. However, the shaft that was in it and how it was mounted was problematic. If you can put a 335 shaft in the C4 head, you'll hit as far as the 460s that are on the market today. If a C4 comes in, it can be repaired. This is the metal sleeve replacement made by Billy Bob's. It is also made to fit the adapter. In the kit, you receive the sleeve, a 350 adapter, and a 335 adapter. Both adapters will fit into the metal sleeve, which allows you to put in either shaft. We'll now look at how to install the metal sleeve. Inside the C4 head, there is a metal boot or receiver groove down at the bottom. The metal sleeve fits into this boot. Dry fit in the head first. Put the adapter on it so you can handle it. Move it back and forth until you feel it fit into the boot. If the metal sleeve falls in there, you can shake it around and it will come out. If the adapter is on it, you can use it for a handle to hold it. We're going to glue the sleeve down into the boot. The rest of the head is hollow. There will also be glue on the top where we have a knurled collar. The sleeve that you pull out of the Callaway does not have any knurling. The Billy Bob knurled collar, along with epoxy, gives it a good bond on the top and a good bond on the bottom because it is fit into the boot. First, mix the epoxy. Put a little epoxy on the bottom of the sleeve. Also, put some epoxy on the knurl. Don't put too much epoxy because you don't want the dry epoxy to fall off and cause a rattle. Take a little epoxy and coat the sides. Then, take a little more and put some in the bottom on the boot. Next, take the sleeve and slide it in and move it around a little bit until you feel it lock into the boot. You should not be able to twist it once it locks into the boot. Now, clean it using a paper towel and some alcohol. Then, let it dry. After it is dry, you can glue in the shaft and adapter. Now that it has dried, you can see the metal sleeve is glued in here and at the bottom at the boot. Pull out the adapter, which was used as a guide to put it in. Insert the shaft to see if the paint line will be covered. This is a 335 shaft, but you can use a 350 shaft if you use the 350 adapter. Today, however, we'll be putting in a 335 shaft. First, mix the epoxy. Then, coat the shaft with the epoxy. Insert the adapter, which has the perforated gluing windows that allow the epoxy to flow through the adapter and into the hosel. Then, add a little epoxy inside the metal sleeve and down at the bottom. Next, insert the shaft. Clean off any excess epoxy. You have now taken an excellent hitting club and put a 335 shaft on it. Once you are experienced in repairing this club, you can charge a good price to repair it. A lot of people throw these clubs away because they're under the impression the club cannot be fixed. They are a good composite hitting head, but the factory shaft was not right. With a 335 shaft in this head, this club is now worth the money that was paid for it.